There's a moment that happens when the house is quiet enough to hear your own breathing. No voices, no expectations, no performance, just you, a warm drink, and the kind of peace most people spend their entire lives chasing outside. For some, this isn't loneliness, it's oxygen. They don't avoid the world because they're broken. They retreat because going out, the dinners, the forced laughter, the small talk, drains something essential from them, something they can only recover alone. Yet most people never see the real reason behind this. They see someone who doesn't get out much, someone who needs to socialize more. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if these people aren't running from life? They are guarding a rare form of sensitivity that noise destroys. Arthur Schopenhauer understood this centuries ago. He saw that for certain minds, society is a tax on the spirit, while solitude is the only place where a man is truly himself. After years of forcing themselves into spaces that felt like work, these people finally stopped apologizing, and something shifted. Stay with me, because once you understand why this silence is necessary, you'll never look at an empty room the same way again. Most people think energy is something you create. You wake up, you push through, you show up, you perform. But for some, energy doesn't work that way. It's not generated, it's preserved. And every interaction, every conversation, every dinner invitation, no matter how well-meaning, becomes a withdrawal from a limited account. The interesting part is that this isn't introversion in the textbook sense. It's not shyness. It's not fear. It's not even preference. It's survival. Because when you've spent decades trying to be the person everyone expected, the friend who always says yes, the colleague who attends every gathering, the family member who never disappoints, you eventually realize something terrifying. You've been living on borrowed energy, and the bill is due. I remember a man who told me his story. He was 58, retired, lived alone in a small house at the edge of town. For 30 years, he'd worked in sales, meetings, conferences, client dinners, networking events. He was good at it. People liked him. He smiled. He laughed. He remembered names. But every night when he got home, he would sit in his car for 10 minutes before going inside, just sitting, in silence, trying to remember who he was underneath the performance. He said it felt like peeling off a costume that had fused to his skin. And when he finally retired, something unexpected happened. He didn't miss it. Not the people, not the events, not the validation. What he missed was the version of himself he'd buried under all that noise. The one who could sit in a quiet room and feel whole. The one who didn't need applause to know he was alive. The one who could breathe without counting the minutes until he could leave. He told me that the first 6 months of retirement felt like learning to walk again, not because he was weak, but because he'd forgotten what it felt like to move through a day without performing for anyone. He'd forgotten what his own voice sounded like when he wasn't adjusting it to match the room. He'd forgotten that home could be more than a place to collapse after work. It could be a place to finally exist. Let's go a little deeper. Schopenhauer believed that most people fear solitude because they fear themselves. They need constant distraction, conversation, entertainment, busyness, to avoid confronting the emptiness inside. But for a certain kind of person, the opposite is true. Solitude isn't where emptiness lives. It's where clarity lives. It's where the noise stops and the real questions begin. Who am I when no one is watching? What do I actually want? What brings me peace, not applause? These aren't questions you can answer at a dinner party. They require silence, space, time alone with your own thoughts. And for people who've spent years performing, that silence feels like coming home after a lifetime of exile. It feels like finally being allowed to take off the mask and rest your face. Schopenhauer wrote that we forfeit 3/4 of ourselves in order to be like other people. And for those who recharge at home, retirement from that forfeiture isn't loss. It's reclamation. It's the slow, painful, beautiful process of remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. But here's the paradox. Even when they finally give themselves permission to stay home, to say no, to protect their energy, they still feel the guilt. The relief when plans cancel, the quiet joy of an empty weekend, the freedom of not having to be on. And then, immediately after, the shame. Because society has taught them that this relief is selfish, antisocial, a sign of something broken. But what if it's not? What if that relief is your body telling you the truth? That you were never meant to recharge through crowds? That your energy doesn't come from external stimulation? That your sanctuary has always been home? That the place where you feel most yourself is the place where no one else is watching? This guilt is the residue of decades spent believing that connection always looks like crowds, that joy always sounds like laughter, that a full life always means a full calendar. But none of that was ever true for you. And the moment you stop apologizing for that truth is the moment everything changes. Let me speak directly to you. If you've ever felt this, if you've ever cancelled plans and felt a wave of relief so strong it scared you, you're not alone, and you're not broken. You're someone who's finally learning to protect something precious, your inner calm. For years, you tried to be like everyone else. You went out. You socialized. You forced yourself to enjoy things that drained you. And you told yourself it was normal, that you just needed to try harder, that eventually it would feel natural. But it never did, because you were trying to recharge in a way that doesn't work for you. You were trying to find peace in noise, trying to feel alive in spaces that made you feel like you were disappearing, trying to be someone you weren't, in places that demanded a version of you that didn't exist. And every time you came home exhausted, you blamed yourself. You thought, I should enjoy this. Everyone else does. What's wrong with me? But nothing was wrong with you. You were just finally noticing that the life everyone told you to want wasn't the life that actually fit. You were noticing that the version of yourself you performed for others was slowly erasing the version that was real. Pay attention to this part. There's a difference between being tired and being drained. Tired is physical. You rest. You sleep. You recover. Drained is something else entirely. It's emotional, spiritual. It's the feeling that something essential has been taken from you, and you don't know how to get it back. For people who recharge at home, going out isn't just tiring, it's draining, because they're not just showing up physically, they're managing expectations, reading social cues, monitoring their tone, adjusting their energy to match the room, smiling when they don't feel like smiling, laughing when nothing is funny, pretending to be interested when their mind is already at home, in the quiet, where they can finally breathe. This is the work no one sees, the invisible labor of being socially acceptable, and it's exhausting. It's the kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. Because what's been drained isn't your body, it's your sense of self. Schopenhauer understood this when he wrote that we can be ourselves only when we are alone. And whoever does not love solitude does not love freedom, for it is only when alone that we are truly free. This isn't philosophy for its own sake. This is the lived experience of anyone who's ever felt more real in an empty room than in a crowded one. This is the truth that most people spend their entire lives running from, and that you've finally stopped running from. This quiet shift is happening all over the world. People in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, after decades of trying to fit in, are finally choosing to step back, not because they're giving up on life, but because they're finally choosing the life that actually fits them. Before we continue, I want to invite you to join this quiet corner of the internet. This channel is for people like you. People who've spent years trying to explain why they prefer their own company, why going out feels like work, why home is the only place they can breathe. If this resonates, subscribe. Join the conversation in the comments. Share what part of this felt most true for you, because what comes next will help you understand why this isn't a flaw, it's a design. Think about the last time you went out. Maybe it was a family gathering, a work event, a dinner with friends. You smiled, You nodded. You asked the right questions. And the whole time, there was a quiet countdown in your head. How much longer? When can I leave? Will anyone notice if I slip out early? And when you finally got home, when you closed the door behind you and the silence wrapped around you like a blanket, you felt it. Relief. Not because you hate the people you were with, but because you finally stopped performing. You finally stopped being the version of yourself that everyone else needs. And you could just be. You could sit in your own silence without needing to fill it. You could exist without explanation. You could rest without guilt. This moment, this return to yourself, is what you've been protecting all along. Not isolation, not avoidance. Just the right to be real in a world that constantly asks you to be something else. Just the freedom to exist without needing to justify your existence to anyone. This is what most people don't understand. For you, going out isn't leisure, it's labor, it's emotional work, social work, the work of maintaining a persona that doesn't drain everyone around you. And when you come home, you're not resting, you're recovering from the noise, the expectations, the constant low-level performance. You're recovering from being someone other than yourself, and that recovery takes time. Hours, sometimes days. Because what you're restoring isn't just energy, it's your sense of self. The part of you that gets buried under all the masks you wear for the world. The part that only breathes when no one else is in the room. The part that knows ways without needing to explain. That home isn't where you hide. It's where you return to who you actually are. It's where the performance ends and the real person begins. And for someone who's spent decades performing, that distinction isn't small. It's everything. There's a quiet joy in this realization, the joy of missing out. While everyone else is chasing the next event, the next gathering, the next chance to be seen, you've discovered something they haven't. That the best moments of your life happen when no one is watching. When you're alone with a book, a cup of tea, a window, a thought. When you're free to exist without explanation. When you're home. This isn't about rejecting connection. It's about choosing quality over quantity, depth over breadth. One meaningful conversation over 10 shallow ones. One quiet evening over a crowded weekend. One person who truly sees you over 100 who only see the mask. This is the joy of missing out. Not because you're afraid, but because you've finally learned what actually fills you. And it's not noise, it's peace. Real peace. The kind that doesn't need to be earned or performed or explained. The kind that simply exists when you stop pretending. The kind that lives in the space between your breath and the silence of your own home. And once you've tasted that peace, everything else feels like a poor substitute. And here's what happens over time. The guilt fades. The apologies stop. You stop forcing yourself to be someone you're not. You stop pretending that going out recharges you when it clearly doesn't. You stop feeling broken for needing what you need, and you start building a life that actually fits. A life where home isn't a hiding place, it's a sanctuary. A life where solitude isn't loneliness, it's freedom. A life where being alone doesn't mean you're missing out. It means you've finally found what everyone else is searching for. Peace. Real, deep, unshakable peace. The kind that doesn't need validation. The kind that doesn't need an audience. The kind that simply is. You stop measuring your life by how many people you know and start measuring it by how much of yourself you've kept intact. And that shift, quiet as it is, changes everything. It changes how you see your past, how you live your present, how you imagine your future. It changes what success means, what connection means, what a full life actually looks like. Schopenhauer also said this. Ordinary people think merely of spending time. Great people think of using it. And for you, time alone isn't wasted. It's where you think, reflect, create, restore. It's where you become more yourself, not less. It's where you do the quiet work of being human, without an audience, without applause, without needing to prove anything to anyone. This is the part society never teaches. That solitude can be productive, meaningful, rich, that you don't need to be surrounded by people to live a full life. That sometimes the fullest life is the quietest one, the one where you're not constantly explaining yourself, the one where you're not constantly performing, the one where you're simply, finally, yourself. And in that simplicity, you find something most people spend their entire lives searching for in all the wrong places. Contentment, not happiness, not excitement, just the deep, steady contentment of being exactly who you are, exactly where you need to be. I want to talk to you now, not about you. If you've spent years feeling like something was wrong with you because you didn't enjoy the things everyone else seemed to enjoy, listen carefully. There is nothing wrong with you. You're not antisocial. You're selectively social. You're not broken. You're deeply sensitive to the energy around you. You're not missing out. You're safeguarding the quiet truth inside you. And that truth, the one you've built in the silence of your own home, is rich, deep, and entirely yours. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't need an audience. It just needs you to stop apologizing for it. It needs you to stop treating it like a flaw when it's actually your greatest strength. Because while everyone else is burning out trying to be everywhere at once, you've learned the ancient art of being fully present in one place, with yourself. This isn't a weakness. This is wisdom. You've discovered what it takes most people a lifetime to learn, that you don't need constant external validation to feel whole, that you don't need a crowded social calendar to feel alive, that you don't need to be like everyone else to live a meaningful life. You just need to be yourself. And for you, that self thrives in silence, solitude, and the sanctuary of home. That self doesn't need noise to feel real. That self doesn't need crowds to feel seen. That self is enough, exactly as it is, in the quiet of its own company. You've learned that the deepest connections aren't always with other people. Sometimes, the deepest connection is the one you build with yourself, and that connection, steady, quiet, unshakable, is worth protecting. So the next time someone asks why you don't go out more, why you prefer staying in, why you seem so content alone, you don't owe them an explanation. You don't need to justify your peace. You don't need to apologize for protecting your energy. You can simply say, "This is how I recharge. This is how I stay sane. This is how I stay myself." And if they don't understand, that's okay, because you do. And that's all that matters. You've finally learned that your peace is not negotiable, that your energy is not unlimited, that your home is not a prison. It's a sanctuary, and you're allowed to protect it. You're allowed to choose it. You're allowed to love it without apology. But here's the part most people never talk about. Once you've finally given yourself permission to live this way, to recharge at home, to protect your solitude, to stop apologizing for who you are, a new question emerges. One that's quieter, but just as important. How do you know when solitude is healing you? And when it's hiding you? When does protecting your peace become avoiding your pain? And what happens when the very sanctuary that saved you starts to feel like a prison? That's the paradox we'll explore next, because understanding why you need to be alone is only half the story. The other half is knowing when that need has become something else entirely. A quiet corner of the internet for people who choose solitude over half-hearted connections.